As business owners, entrepreneurs, family men, it's difficult for us to find the time to put together projects like these. Even though it's something we really want to do, unfortunately, taking care of the things we have to take care of comes first. However, because of viewer support for people like you, we're able to continue doing this. Please consider joining our Patreon and supporting the Burn and Return podcast. You're listening to Burn and Return, a weekly 1-hour podcast covering news from the agricultural and turfgrass industries.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Burn and Return. My name is Matt. Sometimes I go by the Grass Factor, Martin, and alongside me, I have my two dearest of friends, Mr. Rayito and Mr. Brian DeMay. Gentlemen, how the hell are you?
I'll tell you what, with that pre-show that we just had, I can't wait for the day when 6G is upon us, Matt. I'll feel faster and longer than I ever have before. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, you're just going to have to go ahead and go to www.patreon.com/burn and check it out. Ray, what are you into tonight?
Well, let's see. I have a pizza crust rising right now.
Ooh.
To give you a hint. I mean, I have a pizza crust rising, and I already have the sauce made, so you all know what that means.
I like
And I
the
also have
setting.
And I also have about a pound of Italian sausage, hot and ready to go.
Damn. That sounds like a delicious pizza meal.
Pizza meal.
That actually sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, this week here on the show, we've got so much positive news. It was almost difficult to come up with headlines and burns because pretty much everything could be a return that we're going to cover this week. So let's just keep the theme of optimism high and fresh upon everybody's minds, especially considering everything that's been going on recently in the news cycle. And let's discuss this week's headlines. Just the news. That's right. It is just the news. And you know what? Like I said, we have tons of really, really positive, uplifting news this week. And I think we should kick it off right here with the video captures insane aftermath of train derailment. And you may say, Matt, this is Burn and Return. Why in the hell are we going to talk about train derailment? Well, it's not so much the train derailment aftermath that's getting me all excited about this. It's the fact that this is none other than 43 rail cars carrying what? Oh, potash. Interesting. 43 rail cars. And gentlemen, I don't know. I'm not a mathematical wizard. Yes, it's stunning. It's so stunning we need to play it twice. And if I'm going to type into the calculator here because, I struggle with math. The old 43 times 100, and that would be 100 tons of potash per rail car times 43 of them. Gentlemen, that is 4,300 tons of potash that is being moved by rail here. That unfortunately derailed, making its way out or making its way through Alberta. Now, for those of you who may be saying, oh, wow, okay, yeah, no problem. Well, that's why this is a gigantic problem, as a matter of fact, is the fact that the potash market right now is so tight. In fact, here in North America, we are pretty much 100% dependent upon potash coming out of Canada right now, especially in lieu of what's taking place in Russia. The whole Russia, Ukraine, and of course Belarus had to stick their head in there, and they account for the majority of one one of the majorities of potash producers in the world. And so this has placed additional pressure on Canada, specifically Nutrien, who owns predominantly the majority of the mines there. And so when there's a shipment coming out of Canada full of potash, that should be regarded with a certain amount of safety and importance, because the market right now is already taxed. We are seeing prices higher than they've ever been. And to put it into perspective, this time in 2019 and 2020, a ton of potash was going to be anywhere from $230 to $300 a ton. Right now, we're at $1,000 a ton. So this is unprecedented pricing we're already facing. And then we just shit 43,000 tons right down the drain. This why you just sometimes you wonder, is someone out there laughing at us because of these things that continue to happen? It almost seems scripted at this point, because it's terror story after terror story after terror story. If it's not us running out of formula for babies, if it's not food processing facilities catching on fire and burning down, if it's not refineries burning down, it's our potash supply or our fertilizer inputs derailing on a train. It's just weird, boys, and I hate to be conspiratorial, but it's weird. I'm not being conspiratorial. I'm just saying it's just weird. It sucks.
Matt lives at the Reynolds Wrap factory. True story. I did look into this a little bit, and again, who am I, right? I'm just some fat bastard that kills grass from now to every day, and again, a lot of these fires, everything are in disasters, right? Have been said to be, yeah, there's no foul play, there's nothing like that. You can get real conspiratorial and say that, hey, well, maybe they're just covering it up. I mean, dude, I don't know. And maybe we're just more aware of it, right? So it is something.
Which I think it is the case, to be honest.
I think it's probably what it is. It's probably some little bastard out there in Canada that put a quarter on the tracks, Ray, and thought, hey, let's have some fun. When cow tipping and drinking Canadian Club and Molson all day has run its course, what are you going to do, right? Let's derail the fucking train today. What do you say, guys? Eh?
Mm-hmm.
And you know what our boy said, right? Just gonna send it. Yeah. He did. Larry the Enticer, Uncle Larry.
I would love to continue down the rabbit hole of the influence that Molson and Canadian Club has over this, but I don't want Chaley to think I'm singling him out, because I know he is a Molson drinker. But one of our patrons here did share. This would be Lieutenant Sunflower. J Pink, would it be possible? I'm deviating from how we normally run this show, but J Pink, can you put this image up here?
That.
I probably put it in the wrong. I need to put it in our private chat. You see, in post, we would normally fix this, right? But we don't do any post editing. We just run with this and then put it. But this is an interesting graph. This is an interesting graph here, because these are the destructive events over time that include food processing plants, grain silo fires, destroyed cattle, poultry, hogs, warehouse fires, feed processing plants, and lost hectares. Boys, again, and I want to make this absolutely clear. I do not think this is a conspiracy by any stretch or means of the imagination. What I do think it is that it's failing infrastructure. I think it's
okay. That's a good point. I thought about this the other day. Is that are we seeing, an overstressed, overtaxed infrastructure, manufacturing, all this kind of stuff, right? Just production, pure production. In the standpoint of demand has never been this high. And let's be honest, the way that people eked their way through 08, 09 was probably not dumping shitloads of money into, I don't know, Matt, like air scrubbers in your fertilizer plant, things like that. And so you get into situations like this where oh, hey, we can make, shit piles of money. We just need to produce more. And you crank the reactor up to like 110%. And guess what, Ray? Now, 3 Mile Island, that was a mistake. Ray, what's the most egregious nuclear accident that you can think of? Because I know you've got them all on file.
Okay, I don't think the nuclear accidents were as horrific as
Bhopal?
the accident that happened in India, Bhopal.
Oh, okay.
Because
Union Carbide, for those of you playing along at home. Follow along. Go ahead and look it up.
Union Carbide, which, by the way, Union Carbide sold to Bayer as well.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
How else were we supposed to escape the lawsuits?
Yeah. However, my understanding is that now Bayer is having to assume responsibility for what happened, just like how Bayer has to assume responsibility for everything surrounding glyphosate. So it's not a good scene, but then to come back or circle back to what Ryan was saying about infrastructure, did I not mention in a previous show that what I'm seeing happening on the various production facilities is this is the aftermath of skeleton crews and
That's the other thing.
increased operational normalcy, because normally, do you know what I see inside of a manufacturing plant? You know what I normally see, Matt? I
What's
normally
that?
see the place crawling with people doing what they need to do regarding the maintenance of the facility. Whereas from spring of 2020 up until now, everything was COVID, COVID, COVID. And people were literally kept out of these plants and facilities. And now all of a sudden, 2 years of minimal maintenance, and all of a sudden you're telling people, hey guys, we gotta crank up production. And I know for myself, when I have a piece of equipment or machinery that's been mothballed or idled for a long time, the first thing I do with it is put it through a test run to make sure that it's not going to explode on me when I start it up again.
There is, and listen, and people can say this is a ridiculous statement or whatever, but I believe that there was something about the pandemic that shook up the workforce, which was already teetering to begin with. We had already seen it in the green industry long before COVID, that it was weird. It was getting really, really weird. I think COVID catapulted the remaining industries into the level of weirdness that the green industry had been facing for a long time. And again, I can say that from manufacturing experience, that even if you want to make upgrades to your plant right now, lead times are 6 months, even a year on certain items. And the way it's changed is that you used to be able to issue a PO and put a down payment down on a PO. And then when you would hit milestones of the production of the piece of equipment that you were buying, you would pay an additional portion of your PO, right? And it's not like that anymore. You have to pay everything at once up front, and then you may not get delivery of this part for 6 months, 8 months, or a year later. And we're talking about something that may cost $100,000 in the instance of a burner. And typically what you used to get with a burner would be like, we're going to get a tuning package that comes along with it, where we'll send a technician down to it to make sure it's in full operating, prime when we turn it on, because we stand behind our product 100%. Now they're so stretched then that they will not do that. They'll offer you some sort of package, and they'll say that within 6 months of installation, we'll be able to get someone down there to take a look at it if it's operational. If you manage to get it operational, then we'll be able to get someone down within 6 months of operating to have someone take a look at it and make sure it's running to our specificity. which is totally different than how it used to be, right? And then say you want to keep spare parts on the shelf. If you don't buy that at the time of production, like for instance, we had a Honeywell burner controller, this one piece of equipment, which is basically, it's like a computer, right? That goes into the burner, and it regulates a lot of different aspects of it. 8 months on that burner controller. If you want a replacement one, you have to order 2 at the same time, because it is an 8-month delivery on that part from Honeywell. 8 months. So how many people know that on the front end, or get caught with their pants down on the back end when it fails and they're trying to replace a board inside of the burner controller and they find out it's an 8-month delay? And so you're having to start running wires to touch one another to bypass certain aspects of the burner controller to get it to run. And you're opening yourself up to a lot of hazard there. I'm going to guess the majority of what we're seeing out there, as far as the destructive events that are taking place, is rigging of equipment to get it through because they can't get what they need to bring it back to 100% OEM levels.
Or they're missing maintenance checks, or they're missing best practices.
Because
any of that
workforce,
PM,
the
PM,
workforce they did had, the guys that used to have the skill set of being able to look at something or hear something that sounded off and be able to act on it, those guys are gone now. And who took their place? Someone who has zero experience in this space. And it's not to say that they're not going to become a phenomenal technician over the next 10 years, but as they walk into it, they don't know what to expect. They're not an expert on this line, and it takes time.
That Honeywell burner controller's on fire. You think that's bad?
Yeah. And
I'm
gonna
try and put it out with my T-shirt.
I'm gonna go get my multimeter and check her out, see if she's good.
There's been times.
Get a fire extinguisher first, Billy. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Don't put the probes on the fire. Okay. Oh yeah. Got it. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Because for me, there's two things
I broke
that
the
have
multimeter.
that have saved me from catastrophe. Around equipment and in this industry in general. Number one is, of course, my sense of smell, right? and you know what else saves me from catastrophe? My hearing.
Yep. That's why we don't wear. Yeah.
And it comes with experience, right? And
Yes.
again, the people who have had the experience in these positions are all gone now. I think COVID forced a lot of these people into no longer wanting to be a part of it, or going ahead and taking the retirement that they had been considering and teetering on. I'm like, well, now is the perfect time. And so here we are.
Now's the perfect time for me to get out. Yeah.
The next one here is Fairfax, and this is out of Marinage. Marin County in California. Town council voted 5-0 on Wednesday to approve an ordinance that prohibits the use of lawnmowers, chainsaws, leaf blowers, and other tools that run on gas. The council also established a rebate program to help residents and landscapers with the transition to all electric or battery-operated devices. The ordinance is set for a second reading at a council meeting in July. This will take place effective in January in 2024 for professional landscapers. The council will also approve a one-time 6-month financial hardship exemption for residents who apply. I do not have a lot of concerns about the deadline, said Councilmember Barbara Kohler, who suggested the extension. I think this is quite expensive for a homeowner who has a lot of equipment, and I think we have work to do if we move forward on this ordinance tonight. The plan is a result of the town's climate committee, which identified the ban as a goal more than 2 years ago. So here it is. It's here. It passed 5-0. They're going to continue talking about it for a little bit. They are putting some rebates out there. The state is expected to make $30 million in rebates available to help business owners. This would include a $10,000 allocation to support the town's rebate program, and another $27,000 to replace the town's gas-powered tools. Residents who train in equipment will get discounts ranging from $30 for an edger to $300 for a riding lawnmower. Professional landscapers are eligible for discounts ranging from $150 for an edger to $1,200 for a riding lawnmower. So Interesting kind of take on it. It's moved forward, and who knows where it goes from here. It'll be definitely.
So they
something to
basically
watch because
they bought you an extra set of blades for the edger and an extra set of blades for the mower. That's essentially what they did. But so two things on this. One, I thought this was already enacted in California as it is. This is just them trying to move this up and make it official because I think there's some leeway, right, with the dates and the start date for the statewide switch over to electrical. So they're just trying to codify this and make it in their town. JP, can you pull the article back up where you had it real quick? Is that still possible, or have you closed out of it? The one thing I would like to know is, let's see here. She talked about professional landscapers. I just want to know, what about unprofessional landscapers? What about the $20 chuck in a truck like Busy Bees goes up against? Are those covered in this, Matt? Unprofessional landscapers?
John, do you think California is going to cover the unprofessional landscapers?
I would advise anybody who's thinking of doing this not to.
I
Look at that, John.
Either, so I think that's
John.
I think that's a fair take.
He might follow Gavin Newsom. You never know. He might move over there to California, run for governor. I'd support that. John, would you run for governor of California?
I would advise anybody who's thinking of doing this not to.
You know what? It is a tough job. I understand. And so, we'll see what happens out there. Maybe Schwarzenegger will come back.
The UN had constructive talks in Moscow on Russian grain and fertilizer exports. This whole thing is weird, and I don't want to get a whole lot into speculation here. However, there is without a doubt a significant amount of global pressure on food supply, and developing nations being absolutely hammered right now. When you've got places like Ukraine that are having silos that are potentially being targeted in some news reports, or some that are just saying they've got grain stuck in silos. Some people are saying that Russia's threatening to hit these silos. Others are saying that the talks are having about releasing these from silos is going really well. And it's damn near impossible to make sense of what's going on. But what I thought was most fascinating is that the United States was basically like, hey, if anybody wants to go ahead and do business with Russia for grain exports and or fertilizer exports, we will give you the okay. And everybody's like, oh, yeah, okay. And so the U.S. is like, no. We'll give you a comfort letter that will help to encourage them to do this business. So, boys, if y'all were worried about importing any Russian UAN, don't, because the U.S. government will issue you a comfort letter to make sure it all feels better. So what does this mean for the war effort? I have zero clue. I'm not a war strategist. What does this mean for food supply on the global market? I have no idea. Is it too little too late? Is this the appropriate response? I don't know. But this is exactly what's taking place. We issue all these sanctions, and now we're slowly just kind of walking back individual ones because we may have created a global issue. Who knows what? I'm not trying to speculate over what this is. All I'm saying is that this is actually what's happening. Some of these we're having to walk back on because we may have accidentally contributed to starving a decent portion of the of developing nations, and that's not a good look either. So you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. We got our pants down right now, and it's not a good look. But we do got comfort letters. We got comfort letters, so I feel better there. Right?
Doesn't a
comfort letter make you feel better, DeMay?
This whole situation is very fucking uncomfortable. I know. There's multiple things going on here that are just wild, right? So first you have the Russian Navy, which is blockading all of Ukrainian ports, right, that aren't allowing grain exports to come out, even in the areas that, are still in Ukrainian hands, right? So even though they can get it to port, they can't get it out. So rail lines have become increasingly important. I know Poland is trying to help get some of this grain out and into the market, and that is being met with some resistance. Just today, I think there was a fairly big processing ag and grain processing plant at a port in one of the cities there that was attacked by rockets and all that kind of stuff. And
Gosh.
so not ideal. I mean, not a whole lot of you can have your comfort level when you attack a port with which grain is going to. And then here is the worst part, is that this was just this afternoon that the United States and their diplomats warned other countries, specifically in these areas and nations in Africa and other areas of Southeast Asia that are choked off from food supply, that the Russians have stolen a significant amount of Ukrainian harvested crop from last year and have it on boats and are trying to take it there to sell it to them. So you're going to be in this, sort of like mafia, organized crime type of situation. Hey, you need it.
Man.
I've got it. How bad do you want it? So just an incredibly fucked up situation. So here, I just want to say this, and without getting too political, it's like, the people that are saying, hey, how come we're sending all this money and everything over to Ukraine and everything like that? It's like, man, I get the whole diverting money for domestic priorities versus international priorities, right? World affairs, foreign affairs. But you got to see the forest for the trees, man. Like, there is some way bigger shit of why this money and why all these weapons and everything else are going over there. It is much more than just, fighting communism or anything like that. Like, there is serious shit at stake here. And if you aren't feeling it yet, and if you haven't gone to the grocery store yet and seen it, just fucking wait. So that's my only message, is for the people that are, considering this, whether it's a conspiracy, it's this, it's that, screw Putin, let the Ukrainians fight their own war, do all this, do all that. It's way bigger than that, guys. It's got nothing to do with War American and we can isolate ourselves. It's got nothing to do with that. It's way bigger. So just, again, see the forest through the trees, and, hey, fuck Vladimir Putin. Ray, don't you agree?
I totally agree, because let's put it this way. When I find out that I can't even get a couple pounds of flour thanks to Putin FAFOing, I'm going to have serious problems, okay? I'm going to have major problems, because the second somebody messes with my pizza, pasta, and biscuits, we're going to have trouble. Just putting it out there. Okay, we're gonna have trouble.
Ray has a trident and is not afraid to use it.
Yeah, I'll use it. I mean, it's and I don't care if Putin was KGB or whatever it's called. I'll match him. I mean, it's like, because I'm used to taking on stuff like that.
Well, listen.
I'm not scared.
When Sheila needs those marathon romps, and you ain't getting that done without your carbs. So, Vlad, beat Sheila.
Yeah.
In Orange County, Florida, they have new fertilizer rules in effect. All fertilizer applied to lawns must be at least 65% slow release now. You cannot, the fertilizer free zone has been extended from 15 to 25 feet, and only 3 pounds of nitrogen can be applied annually every 1,000 square feet. This is going to be near the Orlando area, Orange County, Florida. And this is still going to be completely phosphorus free. Is slow release fertilizer in hammered rainfall events that you see in Florida going to be the solution here? I don't know. We can debate this
I don't think so.
Another show in the in the Burns, this is, I just wanted to highlight that this is in effect. These have been ruled, and in fact, I'll tell you what we should do. We should put that as a burn next week and talk about why that could be a good thing, but why it's probably a bad thing. And then lastly, wanted to talk about PFAS in food wrappers, because we're going to do a little bit deeper dive on PFAS and biosolids in this episode here. And people may be wondering where the hell it's coming from and why are humans so full of these forever chemicals. Well, it's because it is in everything, including especially our food packaging. Everybody's eating fast food. Fast food's selling everywhere. No one has time to cook anymore. And it turns out all the packaging for these fast food companies is, got a lot of PFAS in it. And so as that comes in contact with our food, and it goes in contact with our food at 130, 140, 160 degrees Fahrenheit, the potential for contamination in our food that we then ingest, that we then excrete from our bodies, is that's exactly how it's making it into our waterways and all that stuff from our waste. So again, just another thing to highlight here, that this is going on, but really when we get into the burns, we can talk about some people that have plans for it, on how to handle it in biosolids, but even more so why their plans that they have on paper don't necessarily match with what could potentially happen in reality. And it's going to get a little bit dark because we're just full of positive news today. That was our headlines, but gentlemen, let's enter the next phase of the show. I'm not gonna lie. This is my favorite thing we do week in and week out.
Joe knows turf.
Such a terrible
Hi, I'm Joe. I'm gonna give you a bunch of accurate turf facts today because Joe knows turf.
All right.
Listen,
DeMay, go ahead, DeMay. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, of all the major production awards that we will win this year and every year thereafter that we continue to do this show, we will not win the sound editing one. There's no doubt about it. That's a hard cut. It's a hard cut. All right. Again, this is non-discriminatory. This is for our viewers, our loyal viewers, gentlemen, that want to come here and learn something. And how better to learn? And one thing I thought about this was we could offer, one of the things that our friend Turf Truth was criticized for roundly was that, he would say and point out what was wrong, but he would never offer an alternative of what maybe would be the right path, whether it be research-backed, science-based, whatever, or just our own experiences. And so, with that being said, I think we'll endeavor to do that tonight with our segment here. But this was sent to me as a recommendation for tonight, and I've not watched it. I don't believe anybody else here has, simply because we don't normally watch this kind of stuff. So, yeah, let's take a look. Feel that? It's like porn music with more reverb.
But I'm not gonna lie, the production talent here is way beyond anything I could ever do. So I will
Only at
definitely
the end of
round
May,
of
and I
applause
already
that.
have a lot of dead and dying material in the lawn, and it's only going to get worse as the lawn stresses out in the heat of the summer. So, in preparation for the fall, it may seem early, but it's not. I want to go ahead and help the lawn break down this dead material. How? Well, the title already says it. I'm going to be using D-Thatch, liquid thatch digester. What's going on, everybody? Chuck here, and I hope that you are having a fantastic day today. I have the channel Dadding All Day, and you can check that out down in the description box below if you'd like. Now is the time for you to decide whether or not you want to apply D-Thatch, because as the temperatures outside rise, the effectiveness of D-Thatch increases. D-Thatch helps with the breakdown of dead material in the lawn, which also provides an alternative source of fertilizer here in the summer months, where many of us here in the South, especially with cool season grass, are pulling back on applying high nitrogen fertilizers. Hey, if you haven't done so already, why not go ahead and hit that like button, as that's what's going to help grow this channel. And we just want to say thank you to every single one of you that have followed us since the beginning. You all are some awesome people. You will see a green up after applying D-Thatch after a few days as that dead material starts to break down, all those trapped nutrients become available to the plant. D-Thatch is available in all DIY sizes.
I'm not sure that's accurate. Ray, can you explain first of all what D-Thatch is and what they are attempting to do with it? Let's start with that first.
Okay, D-Thatch is a humic and bacterial based desatcher, alleged desatcher. What they're attempting to do with it is they're attempting to apply something to thatch that gets it to rapidly decompose or decompose faster than it normally would. That's number one. However, the process for organic matter in turfgrass to liberate its nitrogen often takes longer than a few days. I've seen it take anywhere from weeks to months, and it is interesting how our guy there has concerns about nitrogen in the summer on a cool season lawn, because my experience with nitrogen being released from organic matter is that it often does it at the exact time that you don't want it, which is during the peak of summer.
Nutrients become available to the plant. Dethatch is available in all DIY sizes, quart-sized bottles all the way through 2.5 gallons. The recommended application rate is 6 to 9 ounces per gallon. 1 gallon covers 1,000 square feet. I'll be applying this throughout the summer once a month at 6 ounces per 1,000, May, June, July, and August. That way, this will help start breaking things down and get my lawn ready for my fall overseed. Using dethatch does not guarantee that you will not need to use mechanical dethatching, especially if you have a lot of thatch. If you have minimal thatch, minimal dead material, you may not need to go with a mechanical intervention as long as you stay on top of your dethatch applications. Anyway, that is it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, why not go ahead and give it a thumbs up, because as I said earlier, that is what's going to help grow this channel. Links to purchase dethatch are down in the description box below, as well as all the helpful links to the Greene County Fertilizer website, where you can read PDFs on all of the products so you can get a better understanding on how best to use them. I will see you all the next time I'm on the channel. Have a fantastic rest of the day, and God bless.
Oh, okay. Okay. Go ahead.
I was just going to say a couple things here that we could talk about is that there has been a quite a few trials that have been done in this space trying to use biological dethatchers. Early research showed that really you had to target lignin was the case, and so you were specifically having to apply enzymes that would target lignin in order to have a meaningful amount. And there was basically no efficacy to molasses at all. Then there was another trial by Clemson, and this would have been Dr. Weaver. And the study here is the evaluation of biological thatch control on golf greens. And what they did see was that blackstrap molasses applied bi-weekly at it was like
5 gallons per thousand.
Applications.
5 gallons per acre. 5 gallons per acre, I think.
Let's see, that would be 5, 10, 15, 20. Yes, somewhere around there, and applied at 20 something applications a year, if I recall correctly. That they had a 16% decrease in thatch weight. So if you think this is something that you're going to go out and apply and just have some sort of tremendous difference, no, that is not the case. Again, this would have to be applied at such an inordinate amount of time and at inordinate rates that it would become cost prohibitive, because you're basically the only thing you're doing is applying it. Oh, I'm sorry. It was applied every 7 days. So in order to achieve any kind of thatch reduction at all, it would have been every 7 days. And what was interesting is that you could get the same amount of efficacy from something like Worm Power applied at every 30 days, or Earth Max at every 14 days, or higher rate of Earth Max at every 30 days, and they all had about the same level of efficacy. Blackstrap molasses offered zero benefit to turf quality over the control. And in fact, all of these biological products had basically zero influence over turf quality over a 2-year period. NDVI ratings were basically nil. You did have some root length improvement that occurred across all the products, and again, when it came to thatch thickness and thatch weight, 16% when applied every 7 days over 20 something applications a year. So to extrapolate this out and say that, if you apply this now in May or June when it's hot outside in this one time, or we're just going to bake it in and we'll do a little bit now and then we'll do a little bit later and act like that is the exact same thing as the trial protocol that we saw here, is doing a major disservice. That is so. Anyway, I think we've highlighted that pretty well. Am I leaving anything out?
I would just say there are very limited cases I can think of and have seen, and again, I have not seen it all, so I'm just going off of anecdotal evidence here, right? That very few and very limited situations in which thatch is such a problem that we need to effectively manage it in a lawn, right? So the first thing I would do before even considering applying this product would be to measure my thatch level and understand how to do that, right? So it's not the dead stuff on top that our friend Chuck here was pointing out. That's nothing, right?
It's not thatch.
That's not thatch, nor are grass clippings that are down on the surface, right? So thatch is an accumulation of organic material just below the surface, right? So it is dead decaying plant parts to a certain extent, not necessarily leaf blades, right? And then it is fueled, I guess you could say, by the amount of water and the amount of nitrogen that we put down, right? So if you are one of those people that says, hey, I've got to throw her down, I've got to do all this and that, well, you may be inducing other problems, right? So I think the message here is this, is only do what you absolutely need to do and verify that you need to do it. And number two is that anything that you choose to apply and or do to your lawn or turf grass area has resultant consequences somewhere else within the system, right? There's never anything that we do that is in a vacuum in a turf system. So that's our message for tonight.
There we go.
Yes.
Thanks, Chuck, in the DIY channel for providing us a valuable piece of information there that we can look at and say, okay, well, we can throw that in the trash can. Moving on, let's talk about this week's burns. I know I did that out of order, J Pink, and I'll correct it after this. I apologize. Sorry.
He hates
Sorry,
us.
J Pink.
He hates us.
I was trying to do it on memory, and then when I opened back up our log, I was like, "Oh shit, that's why the delay." But I didn't want to be silly and try to undo it. Remember we were talking about the commercial food processors earlier. Massive fire breaks out a commercial egg farm near Cokato, Minnesota, or Stockholm, Minnesota. I don't know how to say either of these. It's in Minnesota. Might as well be Canada. God bless everybody that lives here because that is a frighteningly cold place. A late night fire started a commercial egg farm, likely left thousands of chickens dead Saturday night near Cokato, Minnesota. Crews were called shortly after 10 p.m. on Saturday night for the fire at the Forsman Farms facility on Mary Avenue in Stockholm Township, located just off Highway 12. At the scene, crews found heavy fire coming from a barn housing chickens and manure. Multiple departments were called in to help with the large firefight. There was a video that was posted on the line of the main building, and the fire was significantly damaged. There was light damage to the neighboring building. Anyway, it's unclear exactly how many chickens were killed in the fire, but the estimates of 200,000 chickens when the fire broke out, but they don't know exactly how many of them died. This facility produces 3 million eggs per day. And so, the chicken situation was already weird with the avian flu that's going around. And like we said, it's just kind of comical at this point as far as how much stuff keeps happening. And I don't want to continue down the conspiracy wormhole. I feel like we're getting a little too fringe in that. So I'm just going to kind of move away from this topic. And we have two specific instances here, and I'm going to fly through this because this last one I really want to deep dive into. But we have two specific incidents here, and this is to pay. Everyone should pay caution to while they're out there. Remember that it is, just be aware of your surroundings. A man was struck by a semi truck on Illinois 124 near Sherman. Daryl Al Sample, 74, was pronounced dead at St. John's Hospital at 3:08 p.m. on Saturday. He was mowing the grass on the west side of the road when he attempted to cross it. He got hit by a semi truck, which is heading south towards Sherman. The driver attempted to swerve out of the way of the mower, but couldn't avoid a collision. So that is just an absolute horrific accident. And then we have here a Mount Airy man died in a lawnmower accident. 82-year-old Augustus Clement Harris was killed when he became pinned under his zero turn. Investigators believe Harris was operating his mower across a steep hill when it slid down the incline and flipped, trapping him beneath it. Deputy said the mower was equipped with an aftermarket awning. Medical examiners are still working to determine Harris's exact cause of death. And the one thing I'll say about this is that I rolled a, the old Toro Sidewinders that had the adjustable deck, I rolled one of those into a pond one time. And if it were not for the roll cage, the roll bar on it, I would have been pinned in a very, very shallow amount of water, no more than 11 or 12 inches of water, and it would have drowned me. So, as annoying as it is, you got to wear your seatbelts. You got to take safety seriously with these because, unfortunately, these are the type of accidents that can happen. Boys, have y'all had any close calls on equipment before?
Personally, no. I can honestly say I've never been near death on a piece of equipment ever, mostly because I tried not to do stupid shit. I would say honestly, probably the closest I ever came was I had a roller, like a greens roller, motorized one that goes side to side. I was trying to get it up on the trailer, and those, it is a lot easier. Instead of riding it up, you kind of just stand off to the side and you hit the pedal, right?
The pedal,
kind of force it up,
and then you
and you stand on the side of it. Well, I stood to the side of it, and it was kind of wet that day and slippery, and it couldn't get up, so I tried to push it. Well, my hand slipped off the pedal as I was pushing it to the right, to get it going up, and it flipped back, it went back the other way on me, and literally rolled right over top of me. I mean, like, just jumped down over top of my feet, rolled right up my face. I mean, it didn't hurt, but I probably could have died.
Mighty.
I had that happen. The closest I ever came to dying was cutting down a tree, and it got pinched, caught up, and the trunk swung back and hit me right in the midsection. And I saw it coming, and I kind of braced myself and curled myself around the tree. And all that happened was I got thrown back probably like, say about 15 or so feet in the air, and then banged my head on the ground and got a concussion. But
oh my god.
Yeah, it was
terrible.
Oh man, let's see. Where do I start? Let's see.
Oh boy,
just the top two, Ray. Just the top two war stories.
Okay,
here.
number
this is
one,
the war stories of Burns right now.
I once lost my mower down a 30-degree grade.
Yikes.
And I caught it just in time to be able to throw the brake on. And I'm glad I did, because that mower would have gone full speed into someone's car and then into oncoming traffic. And number two, it's funny you should mention trees, because I was once trimming a branch off of a tree, and something told me as I was getting close to the blade going through the tree branch for me to hide behind that tree trunk as I was cutting. And I'm glad I did, because when I finally went all the way through, that branch snapped backwards and hit the tree trunk.
Mm.
Okay? But that is like lessons from those two things. Number one, I do not mow grades. Doesn't happen anymore. Number two, I'm not a tree trimmer. I have nothing to do with trimming trees.
Hey,
You know,
listen. Go ahead.
no, you go ahead. You go ahead.
I was going to say, if we were going to share war stories, we need to get Billy the maintenance man from Carbon Earth Fertilizer to come on here and tell us about that time he was servicing the 5G tower, and he's got that scar in his scrotum, prove he damn near bled out. Aimed like a wildcat, though.
Yeah, you want to talk about horror stories there. We could talk about spontaneous combustion of poultry manure, which is probably what set that egg processing facility on fire. I've seen that before. I've seen people stick their hands into airlocks before because they thought they could get $20,000 per finger that got removed, which is pretty accurate, actually. I've seen people stick their hand in.
Is that what a
conveyor
finger's worth
rollers.
these days?
Yeah, apparently that's what you'll end up getting about.
You got to go. You got to go a finger and a half now because of inflation if you want that 20 grand.
Or people that need a refill on their opiate prescription that stick their hand in conveyor belts and anyway, it gets real weird in the workforce, and that's probably why things are catching on fire right now at the rate they are, because insurance pays better than workers' comp does for the time being. This last one I wanted to dive in here, and boys, we can get real weird on this. We got a little bit of time here. And this is going to be the Saratoga Biochar facility, and this is going to be up near in Moreau, New York. Fueled by fears of another environmental disaster along the upper Hudson River, residents are organized into slow approvals for Saratoga Biochar Solutions' proposed move into the town's industrial park. So basically, the people are really worried about PFAS and the amount of sulfuric acid that's going to be used to convert biosolid waste into carbon fertilizer. So, and let me clarify this, that when we say carbon fertilizer, carbon is not fertilizer. What they're going to do is pyrolyze biosolids, and through a process reaction, what you're doing is you're heating organic matter, whether it be biomass, any sort of biomass whatsoever, any kind of organic matter. You heat it in the absence of oxygen, and you're releasing the volatiles, and you're leaving behind just the carbon, right? So most of these biomass compounds, all of them, are going to contain carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Hydrogen and oxygen, and some of the ones that still have C attachments are considered the volatile compounds, right? And so you're trying to remove all of that and just leave behind the carbon piece of it. Well, unfortunately, we all know that there's also way more in biosolids or any sort of biomass than just CHNO, because we have things like polyfluoroalkyl substances like PFAS. And so what they are saying is that, we want to build a $29 million plant. We're going to take a huge amount of biosolids, so effectively 25,000 tons a year, and we're going to turn it into biochar. However, the people are saying like, okay, well, let's take a look at your process here. And they're saying that we're going to heat it to 1,600 to 1,800 degrees Fahrenheit, which is going to be 900 to 1,000 degrees Celsius. And anybody that comes from the biochar space knows you always report this in Celsius, and that's why I'm doing it in Celsius, because that's kind of the grade. And they claim, the biochar company here claims that is hot enough to break the bonds that holds these compounds together, even in the carbon fluorine bonds that make PFAS such a strong, long-lasting compound, aka a forever chemical. However, the residents point to a technical brief from the United States EPA that notes that PFAS cannot be destroyed below temperatures of 1,400 degrees Celsius or 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit. So they are a whopping 1,000 to 800 degrees Fahrenheit away, or 400 degrees Celsius away from being able to break those bonds. And then the EPA, of course, goes into more detail about how difficult it is to effectively get rid of this. So their manufacturing process would be bringing in the biosolids, putting it through their process reactor, and then feeding that to a thermal oxidizer. So all of that waste gas in the form of hydrogen and oxygen and fluorine and stuff that's going to be coming off this, ammonia from the biosolids, as all of that volatilizes and is released to the atmosphere. They're going to put it through a thermal oxidizer, and then they're going to scrub what comes out of that thermal oxidizer with sulfuric acid, right? So if there's any free ammonia, that will be scrubbed through the sulfuric acid. You get ammonium sulfate as a byproduct. They got another product that they can sell that is a waste stream for them that actually holds value, right? So anyway, what's interesting, and I think it is worth 100% of the attention that the local community is paying to this, is let's actually show that our pyrolysis temperature of 1,000 degrees Celsius is indeed enough to clean up all the PFAS. Now, if you want to take this and I think that is a very, very fair question. Otherwise, we're just going to be sending this stuff airborne, and that is not an ideal thing that you can claim that you're clean and green and renewable all you want. But if you're sending a metric shit ton of concentrated PFAS into the atmosphere, that's not a good thing either.
Actually,
if you
Matt,
would like to learn, what's that?
I actually have to kind of stop everybody right here, because do you know what the other feature of PFAS is?
No.
Up until its decomposition temperature, PFAS are also mostly non-volatile, meaning you can't just easily distill it off from the material. And here's another thing to consider, and I'm pretty sure that somebody caught attention of this, is that even fluorine and fluorides, that talk about hazardous material, even if it's no longer bonded to hydrogen and carbon. I mean, fluorine is like some cool stuff that gets into people's bones, for example, and will disintegrate them. And so my question is, all right, what do these guys intend to do with this material that they're distilling off when they pyrolyze the biosolids, and say that material has a high concentration of fluorine and fluorides? Now what? Because that is now another hazardous material. And
on their
website
here, the SaratogaBiochar.com website, where they go into what I would consider a very low and almost insulting level of non-detail. If you read this for the first time and you saw it, you would be like, oh yeah, that's a lot of thorough detail that they put into this. However, for people who have been on this side of the industry that look at this and say, wow, that's actually a joke of amount of information. It's this, when I read this, and again, I am not a renewable energy expert. I've been around this industry long enough to sniff out bullshit when I see it.
Mm-hmm.
And the answers they're providing here are answers that say, don't worry, we got this. And that, in my opinion, is insulting.
Dangerous words, right, Matt? Yeah.
Yeah.
When somebody proposes to really gloss over and reduce something like this down to the simplest answer, I have to give pause, because, as I said, I know something about PFAS, and the whole point of a PFAS is that they're supposed to be, for example, non-volatile and very resistant to any kind of decomposition. And that's why, for example, they end up on the paper that's used to wrap up a sandwich, because you put a hot, still sizzling hamburger on that, it's supposed to be fairly stable and resistant to degradation. And that's why PFAS used to be used to coat frying pans back in the day because, again, thermal stability. But on the other hand, you get it to the point where it cracks. It forms something called hydrogen fluoride.
But are we
And
even getting it there?
Yeah, but then if you don't even get it there, then you have the PFAS going through this process, and it's going to end up in the biosolids, and whoever uses those biosolids or biochar made from these biosolids, guess what they're getting with their biochar fertilizer? Guess what they're getting?
You're getting a greater concentration of PFAS and carbon that you're going to go. Or the alternative is you do break it down, and now you've got a concentration of hydrogen fluorine that you're letting loose. And would you enjoy having atmospheric hydrogen fluoride being released right next to you? I mean, is that something you would want?
No, and I'll tell you why.
Why?
Hydrogen fluoride. Hydrogen fluoride. Do you know what hydrogen fluoride actually is, Matt?
No, tell me, Ray. What is hydrogen fluoride?
That is the gaseous form of hydrofluoric acid.
Okay. Yeah. That's real safe.
Okay,
right?
Matt. Yeah, hydrofluoric acid. That's the gaseous anhydrous form of HF. And I've seen some pictures of HF burns. I've also heard reports of contact with HF killing people. And so, and also, if HF is inhaled, no, that's like a direct route for that hydrofluoric acid into somebody's body. It doesn't even need to be slowly absorbed through the skin. It's just right into the person's circulation. So I'm kind of wondering, okay, if they're going to do this, are they going to generate more hazardous materials than they're disposing of? I mean, that's my fundamental question at this point.
And I want to address this, that I promise there is no one that is harder on the biochar industry than I am, because there are people out there that are trying to do good, and there is an even greater number of people that are trying to do bad. We have Alton, who is arguably one of the biggest disgraces to the biochar industry. We have Cello Energy, who is one of the biggest disgraces to the biochar industry. And the potential here for this to fall into that same category, because it feels good that we're recycling and reusing, and it's renewable and it's regenerative. But in reality, what are we actually achieving? Look, there's safer sources of biomass to go after that you can actually do something with your waste stream, like use it as syngas. But you need to be careful where you even select your biomass from. Like, for instance, I specifically could not take biomass from parts of Ohio because arsenic levels in the wood were too high, and that would be left over in the biochar. And so there were portions of Ohio you could not accept hardwood from to put through a pyrolysis reactor. Okay. And that's no fault to say that Ohio is some toxic wasteland, because in reality the trees are doing a phenomenal job of pulling arsenic that used to be in things like pesticides out of the soil and making them more productive and safer for food and other things that are going to be grown on it. So it serves a purpose. The nature has a way of taking care of itself. And I'm not shitting on Ohio specifically here, DeMay, I promise.
Hey, listen, I think we can all agree that in Ohio, there's no bad wood. There's just some that's better than others.
Yes. And
DeMay's wood
to speak to that,
top notch.
To speak to that point,
when
nature
DeMay wood
takes something and
will you be the nail to my flesh hammer?
Sequesters it, right? When nature takes something and sequesters it, you know what nature wants us humans to do with that material that is now sequestering all of this hazardous, material? Nature does not want us to creatively repurpose and reuse it. Nature intends us to take that material, abandon it somewhere far from human contact, and never touch it ever again. Okay? That's what nature wants us to do.
The last thing I want to say about this, and then we have to move on. But the other thing, the local community there is concerned that what if one of these trucks wrecks and spills this, and they said, don't worry about it. Biosolids are non-hazardous. What about in heavy concentration form? And here's the other thing: is that they're now actively testing for PFAS, which is great. That's a wonderful next step in the equation. However, when are we also going to test hormone and antibiotic concentrations in this? Because I think that is a looming wild card that could fuck this up as well.
If you don't think that this is going to be a highly regulated industry, like this is just the very tip of the spear when it comes to this. And I think, let's be real. What we're learning about this stuff is concerning. And quite honestly, Ray, you've said it all along. Get that shit away from my lawn, and I think Matt's talked about it before in the sense that there's a reason that before, in pre-COVID times, this stuff was literally the cheapest shit you could get as far as a raw material to put in fertilizer.
$0.
It was
$0.
Okay, and Matt,
take it away for me.
You know what? And do you know what else is present in biosolids? That's also pharmaceutical. That's also a chemical of concern. And I think I brought that up on one of the shows. A lot of your SSRI, antidepressant, and anti-anxiety medications are fluorinated molecules.
That's right.
Fluoxetine
bonds.
Yeah, fluoxetine, fluvoxamine. All of these chemicals. And here's where I have concerns about something like this out in the environment. I was reading a report that said that fish exposed to these compounds have a significant alteration in their natural behavior. And I can see that.
It just so happens that this plant would be located like maybe about 300 yards from the shores of the Hudson River.
Well,
for goodness sake.
That's just an unfortunate side effect, right? Like,
well, for goodness sake, and
hey, you guys put the industrial park here. It's not our fault.
Yeah, well, but then my question is that what is being done regarding, again, these forever chemicals that are also used in pharmaceuticals? Because the other one that, when you say antibiotics, I start to think about a class of antibiotics called the fluoroquinolones, Cipro, for example.
Oh yeah,
that's some pretty heavy shit. And you know why Cipro is effective at what it does? It has such a long half-life once you take it. Okay? Because it goes through your body and it stays there for a long time, and it is not broken down very readily by your liver even. It just goes through. So
all right, we got to move on, but it is this is something I definitely want to pay attention to and see if it does get greenlit, and I'm real curious if Saratoga Biochar gets way more in the depth of weeds around here. And in fact, I'm going to email them directly to see if they will share any additional information to me, because this is kind of my thing that I'm into, and I'm curious that as I approach them on Twitter and directly, what they will and what they won't share, and then of course I'll share that with everybody else if they do entertain my questions. Gentlemen, I'm doing it out of order, but this week our show is brought to you by our patrons. And listen, for those of you who don't know, that we are so damn appreciative of our patron members. And I got to say, the most incredible thing about it at this point are the just the people that we get to interact with on a daily basis. If you would like to be a part of that, check us out, patreon.com/burner-return. At the different areas, you get access to different aspects, different levels of benefits and all this stuff. And if you want, special limited release items, that whether that comes in the form of swag, additional time to be able to talk to us in one-on-one type scenarios, deep dives into specifics of whether, and like I'm looking at some of the higher end ones here, like learning more about amino acids, bacterias, fertilizers, humics, kelps, lime, nano fertilizers, peptides, phosphites, salicylic acid, biochar. And then there's even some research material that gets done and issued out in small amounts, or, whether it's basic weed ID or disease ID, things like that. That's really what we do. But then what we also offer is additional content as well. So we talk about the pre-show from time to time when we do burn and return recordings. In the show before the show, we just hang out, and that's as we're putting together the stories that we've independently kind of aggregated through the week. We always make that a good time. We have Zoom calls where we hang out with everybody, and like they pick which movie we're going to be watching for movie night as I get reintroduced back into society, or even events like what we did last year at the GIE, where Ryan came in, and I got to meet them for the first time, and I still think about that sometimes driving to work, and I cry about it because of how influential that was to me. And so this is, I'm kind of giving a heartfelt thing here that there's no one that it could be possibly as appreciative of this as the three of us are, because it has given us a lot of opportunity to do extremely cool things and meet extremely cool people. And I got to say is that what's fantastic about the Patreon community is that, there's everybody that's in it is just an unbelievable human being. And I mean that. And even though some people don't get along, you'll never see us, block someone or ban someone because they have a different opinion than our own. And so we're beacons of free speech and good times, and that's just the way it is. Gentlemen, let's talk about this week's returns. La 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 boys, a black bear interrupted a local man's lawn mowing. And I'm not going to lie, I would probably do myself. Richard McDowell in New Wilmington was cutting his front lawn at around 8:30. He began a pass around his clothesline, getting a little tangled up in the mix, causing him to drop his phone. He was about to retrieve the item in the next pass when he saw it, a 250-pound black bear. In the 35 years I have lived here, I've never seen a bear. We've seen a lot more animal activity in the last few years, but the typical ones like deer, rabbits, but never bears. It was really scary. After the initial shock, about 200 yards away from the bear, he turned off his mower and started yelling for his neighbors. The bear came a little closer, approaching his neighbor's car before changing direction. I ran to my neighbor's trailer so fast and pounded on his door until he answered. By the time he came out, the bear was headed for the Portsbrook Trailer Park, only a little ways from here. McDowell then called the local game commissioner, reported the incident, and feared that the bear could be aggressive. The bear did not seem to be afraid of me one bit. I'm afraid to go out at night now. I got 2 chihuahuas to protect. I think people should be aware, since it's just not a regular thing around here. We got so many farmers that this could present an issue for. I just really wish I did not drop my phone so I could have taken a damn picture for the gram.
Wait a second. So I want to say something real quick, and then there's a YouTube video that I want to see while we're on here. But listen, is there a better way to start the story that ends with, and that was the time I shit my pants while I was mowing the lawn?
We're talking about all those close call incidents. Oh yeah, I almost died. Yeah, well, what about the one time where I doo-dooed myself?
Yeah, here's the thing about bears, is that in general, unless you are infringing on the bear cubs or teasing them with food, they're normally more afraid of you than you are of them. And of course, You know what I think happened with this man? Him pounding on his neighbor's trailer and screaming probably made so much noise that the poor bear said, this is getting too chaotic. I'm out of here. And that's why the bear turned around and went the other way.
J-Pink, can you play this video? Because this is exactly what I thought of when I read this story. Please play this video for everybody. This video is like 12 years old.
A lot of people make fun of me, but I don't care.
Man sees Sasquatch in North Carolina.
I know it's there.
Tim Peeler swears he had an encounter with one of the most legendary beasts in history, Bigfoot.
Well, he was what I would call a Sasquatch.
Peeler says there's no film of his recent sighting because he was too nervous to go for his camera, but he says Bigfoot walked right by him.
He had gray hair and a gray beard that come down here. But he had long hair that was yellowish gray.
He says he spotted the creature one night when he was startled by his dog's barking, and he peered out the window, and there it was.
I talked rough to him and run him off. And he come right by me. He wasn't 10 foot from me. He went back out that path.
Peeler vows to get proof next time.
Seeing is believing. So I'll try to get him on film.
A St. Louis University biology professor says there have been more than 2,500 Bigfoot sightings in the past 100 years in every state and parts of Canada. Myra Lopez, The Associated Press.
A lot of people make...
Jeez.
This is exactly what I pictured, man. He had beautiful hair.
He's kind of yalla. It had a yalla tip. You're in the wrong part of the United States when they call yellow yalla.
Yeah, or when he rough talked him. So I've heard Matt Martin rough talk a Sasquatch or two in my day. Let me tell you what, boys. All right, we got to get serious with this.
Was that at the Taj? Was that at the Taj? I think you could say I rough talked the bears.
Yeah, you rough. Yeah, you did rough talk. He was a tall one too. All right, let's dial in for this last story here.
Yeah, really, the one redeeming thing that we could talk about this week is breaking the grass ceiling. These women volunteers make the cut. This is for the Pilot Open Daily. Tracy Catalino, a volunteer maintenance crew from Pinehurst, mows the fifth green for the first round of the 77th U.S. Women's Open in this picture here. It was a moment that Kelly Lynch never thought she would see in her lifetime. A room full of women professionals in the golf and turfgrass industry, especially at one of the most elite clubs in the country. There she was with more than 30 years of her own experience in front of the room at the Olympic Club in California. As a regional manager for Pure Seed, Lynch knew that almost every face after building up a network of women who work in the golf course maintenance and turfgrass industry. I raised my hand and I'm like, so essentially, is this the moment that we just broke the grass ceiling? Everyone was like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is history in the making. Kennedy Ellis, volunteer. Sorry, I'm not looking at the, never mind. A group of 30 volunteers before her had come across the country to create an all-female maintenance crew to assist a regular crew for the 2021's U.S. Women's Open. It was an idea modeled into reality by Lynch and Troy Flanagan, the director of golf maintenance in the Olympic Club. The Grass Ceiling Society reunited this year at Pine Needles Lodge and Golf Club for this year's Women's Open. Women from across the country and from across this town have stepped away from their regular golf course jobs this week to help Pine Needles crew that numbers less than 15 full-time workers. It's a lot of work, but it's pretty gratifying. It's time away, but it's camaraderie that you get to build with like-minded people that makes it worth it. In the field of golf course maintenance is still a man's world. Women just make up 2% of the workforce. I'd love to see it grow. I know there's other women that would enjoy this field. I just would love to see girls out here getting dirty with us and keeping up with the boys. Her efforts to help maintain growth brought Andrea Salzman to the area. Salzman, a student at the University of Minnesota studying turf management, was working this summer as an intern at Pinehurst and worked with Catalina last year at the Ryder Cup at Whistling Straits in Wisconsin. And it goes on and on here. And listen, I think the incredible number that you hear there is they make up 2% of the workforce. But the other thing that we also hear is the time away, the gratification they get out of this, and the camaraderie you get to build with like-minded people that make it worth it. We talk about the turfgrass Israelis. I talk about it as being a fraternity of sorts because it's 98% male. And but there is a certain level of camaraderie that you build being around like-minded people. And it is incredibly exciting and encouraging to see women stepping into this field. And why it's important is because women provide a unique view and approach to things that men don't. Obviously we're biologically different. Obviously we're genetically different, and we each have individual strengths and weaknesses. And so the having them as part of grounds crews, and especially for an event like this, where a team of women can come together for the U.S. Women's Open, make it a completely women, a pro women's event, and show that they can do the level of work, if not at an exceptional level compared to men, it's great for the industry. It's great for the future of the industry, and especially when the industry is slow growing as it is right now, from a workforce perspective. That now we're starting to see a little diversification in there. So I think this is fantastic.
100% agree. I think the take home message is this: is that well, Matt, you've got a daughter, I've got a daughter, and Ray probably has daughters on 4 or 5 different continents that he may not know about.
No,
yet.
no, false. However, there's a backside to why I was up in a tree doing something that I wasn't supposed to do. And you know what that backstory is?
No.
If this is a Bigfoot story, this can be an amazing way of tying it all together.
Yellowish hair.
No, Ryan. I used to have a lady arborist here in Hawaii that I could call for these kind of jobs. I mean, her name was Jamie Lee, and she was just good because I could just call up Jamie Lee and say, Jamie Lee, I got a tree that needs, trimming. And she'd say, okay, we'll set up the job, get it done. And she was extremely good at what she did. But unfortunately, she moved back to Washington State. So, I didn't have her anymore. So there I am up in a tree doing what I'm not supposed to do. So when I see a story like this where the women are getting out there and getting the work done, I mean, that is just, I love to see that. I mean, I just love to see that happen all the time. And by the way, in the industry here locally, I know of a couple of women in the commercial landscape maintenance space. I do know a couple of women, but I'd like to see a lot more of it. I really would.
I think I think the take home message for the folks that are listening here, at least what I know of them, is that we have a mix of pros, we have a mix of DIYers, and what I would say is the thing that seems to connect everybody, regardless of whether what your gender is, regardless of your race, where you come from, your background, anything like that, is that if you have a passion for something and you share that with somebody, that's what it takes to inspire people. So whether you are that person that takes care of their home lawn, you got a YouTube channel, or you don't have a YouTube channel, or you just love grass, share that with somebody. You don't know what that's going to inspire in somebody else. And same thing if you're a pro. If you're one of those, and I know we've talked about this before, if you're one of those people that says, hey, don't ever go in this industry, it's terrible, it's this, it's that, then just GTFO, man. Like, it's tough.
Stop it. Yeah.
It's got its bad days, but,
yeah.
Could be working at Hardee's right now.
I will say this. I will say this. The people that are like, man, you know what? I sprayed my lawn for about a year now. I think I'm going to start a fert and squirt business. I'm pretty vocal about them staying out of the industry. Hang on.
You know what?
Let's talk about this first.
Let's talk.
I feel like you got to give them a sanity check, because sometimes you talk to them and you're like, oh shit, yeah, you're good. You can do the damn thing. And then other times you talk to them and you're like, oh boy, buddy, you stick to slinging cars over there because you're real good at that.
Because on the other hand, Matt, let me tell you what's been going on. In that, basically, what's come to happen is, I know I've groomed a couple of people on the Discord to get into professional lawn care. I've done it.
I don't think there's.
I've done it.
I get what you're saying, Matt. I get what you're saying. I think,
However,
again, the point here. Yeah, go ahead.
However, the difference is that these are not people that walk into this space thinking that they know everything. And they also don't walk into this space thinking that they're going to reinvent the wheel. I mean, that is just the two things that give me pause when somebody thinks they know everything, or they also think that they're going to reinvent the wheel. It's like, I got to kind of like put the brakes on that and say, hey, wait a minute. There's a reason why for something. And likewise, even for myself, I always tell myself and others, there is a first time for everything. And that keeps me in check, in that otherwise I'm going to tell myself, that's never going to happen, so I'm all good. Wrong. I've been wrong about shit before. Because I don't know as much as I do.
you know, I look forward to see, you know, how the future of this plays out. And I don't know, I'm trying my hardest to watch what I'm saying here, because I get angry sometimes over 2022, 2021, 2020, and particularly in some of the ways that women specifically have been shit on. And now there's obviously a lot of positives that have come about, but also some ways that they've been exceptionally shit on. And I get kind of heated about it. And this is honestly not the show for it in this particular segment. And we should just highlight the fact that they're doing a great job. Real quick, let's check in on a couple of these mailbags.
You've got mail.
So we've got a ton of them. I'm not going to go into detail on all of these tonight. Let's actually do some of these on Thursday. Maybe before we get or at the end of the show or at the start of the show, let's tackle some of these, just because there's so many of them, and we're running long on this episode to begin with. But let's talk to this first one right here. Is going to be Lonegoose. He says, hey guys, I take care of my parents' property. Today I saw a couple spots in the lawn, rye, bluegrass, 9/10 sun, not 3/4, but not full sun, that were brown with some red on the grass blade. It's in a circle patch, so I'm assuming fungus, but I'm having a hard time identifying it. It's been raining a lot here on Long Island, and the temps are between 60 and 75. I attached 2 pictures of what I found. They haven't been running their irrigation because of all the rain. There also has been no real history of fungus in the lawn in the past. Thanks for all the help. It's great. And he posted 2 pictures here that is very clearly red thread. Red thread is one of those things that it can really break out at any time. You're going to see it on all your cool season grass varieties. Gentlemen, do you agree this is red thread?
Very clearly.
Okay.
If it's red,
just making sure I'm not smoking crack. Yeah. And so, you know, fungicide, there's a couple of things here. Like, you know, the old school thought was you need to get your nitrogen tissue levels above, or you should try to fertilize it out, right? Or keep it absolutely goosed on fertilizer to the point that it'll just recover as quickly as it happens. And that's not necessarily the best approach to this. And also, just because it's all supercharged on nitrogen doesn't mean you're not going to have the development of red thread also. And it's also typically a precursor to brown patch, right? So you'll start with red thread, and then what's odd is that typically in those same areas is where you'll see, as it recovers, brown patch begin to develop. Why that is, I don't know, but it is something that has been anecdotally noticed before too. So I would recommend your idea there of not running the irrigation is good, and I would begin your disease prevention, and in this particular instance, your corrective disease applications. You know, your strobilurins are going to be very effective here. Strobilurins plus DMIs are going to be even more effective. Strobilurin plus DMI plus, if you want to throw like some Clear Age 3336 in there in the mix, would probably be the most effective approach that you could take, aside from making the transition over to an SDHI. Gentlemen, anything I'm skipping over here that y'all want to add?
That's verbatim exactly what I would say. I mean, that's pretty good defense. I mean, just don't overdo it on the fertilizer. That's the first thing I would do, but it's not really worth running a fungicide for. You should break out of that weather pattern quickly enough to where it's no longer an issue, but apply common sense before you apply fertilizer.
Yes,
and fungicides.
because you know what you said about brown patch following? That would give me pause about juicing up the grass on a lot of nitrogen in the name of getting out of red thread. Because that succulent, thick, dense, overgrown grass normally invites brown patch and Piscium. And you just, in other words, do you want to trade out one problem for something that I consider even worse? Right? Do I want to trade? Because I'll take a little bit of red thread any day. I don't think I want brown patch or Piscium.
100%. No, none of that is fun. And anyway, good luck to you, Lonegoose. Report back how it goes after you begin making these applications. You should see recovery pretty quick because red thread is pretty easy to recover from. But just keep in mind why you want to use probably the more complex end of that is one, disease resistance management, and also because you should be preparing for the upcoming brown patch that's going to follow this as well. Steve Klein said he's looking for a darker green color on his lawn. So far, he's put down 1/3 of a pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet twice. So actually, he's at 0.65 pounds of N so far. He's not really happy with the color. He's concerned is he missing elements for great growth? I mean, he's got great growth, just not deep green color. Is he missing anything? He's been applying a 2905 stay green slow release for 2% iron. A couple things it could be, depending on your soil pH, you may be limited in the amount of iron that's making its way into the plant, or really any of the other micronutrients. That'd be manganese and zinc and magnesium, and all that can be influenced by soil pH as well. Oh, he has it right here at a 6.7. No, I'm not seeing anything here that would contribute to that specifically. So the other thing I would point to would be the cultivars of Kentucky bluegrass or perennial rye that you have. May not be the genetically darkest green varieties that you have. At 0.6 pounds of N for the season so far, I do understand you like your color. I mean, you like your growth response there, but you're not a super fan of the color. Here's where you can do some foliar applications of. Oh wait, look at that phosphorus number. It's pretty high phosphorus.
It's pretty much
I'd
up
say-
there, and
I'd say that
Really high.
that might be having a touch of influence, and the sulfate's actually a little low too, which could influence the amount of iron making it into the leaf here. I would personally, as just for kind of shits and giggles here, I would apply maybe 1/4 pound in from ammonium sulfate and see what kind of color response you get. You've got enough leeway in your in rate so far this year, but you're getting a little bit of ammonium in, a little bit of acidification, and a little bit of sulfate with that too. And I'm curious what kind of color response you would get. And if you're also not happy with that, then you can do some foliar micronutrients being applied too, and that will definitely get you a darker green color that you're probably at.
okay, here's what I would do looking at, the just going off of the numbers, I would be doing low rate AMS as a liquid, and I'd be adding a chelated micronutrient package to that AMS and apply all as a foliar spray. And usually in this circumstance, that gets the grass greener. If it doesn't get the grass greener, then we have to look at, are you happy with the cultivar of grass that you have? Because there are some cultivars that are well known for not being very green. They present as a not so nice yellowish or lime green. And the only way out of that bad color is to grossly over fertilize. That's just my thoughts off of the top of my head.
Sure. You got anything, DeMay?
I'd be all in on some AMS and some green ore SP.
Oh boy,
feed it to me.
Yes,
getting nasty.
Yes. Yeah, green ore SP. That's where I'd go. I'd make up a little spray with AMS and something like green ore and maybe some additional manganese, zinc, and copper, and then paint it green. Paint it green.
Patrick Beeman, we'll get to you. I will say that requires a bit more of a deeper dive here because the nutrient removal rates are going to be a little bit different for those other grass types that you did. So we will get to that. Greg Maggio, I can tell you that you have bull paspalum, but there's a variety of ways that we can attack that. And so we'll do a little bit of a deeper dive of that on Thursday as well. But that is indeed bull paspalum if you want to start your reading there, and then we'll give you our experience on it. And then let's see here, smart parts. We've got quite a bit to start to covering what you hear. I'm glad you know LW50. We know and love him very, very, very well. And so look forward to going through this with you as well, too. And please forgive us on the front end because we are going to bombard you with a significant amount of information, and you might think we're attacking you, but we're not. It's just, it requires a lot of information here. And at least the information that you gave us probably has us banging our head against the wall because we know you're just repeating what you've been told. And it's the fact that you've been told that makes us want to swallow sharp objects and hope we don't wake up the next day. But we will wake up the next day, and we will talk about it on Thursday, how we would approach that. Maybe that's just me.
I'd appreciate if you didn't talk about my my 6G phone like that. It's unbecoming because I'll be coming.
Thank you everybody for listening. Coming up, we got a happy birthday to Busy Bees on June the 8th. Sir, happy 22nd birthday. I know you're a little bit older than that, but you act a little bit younger than that, so I just settled on whatever number I just said. And then on Thursday, we have our DIY patron, a webcivilian, who's going to be on, so we're going to have a good time there as well. Stick around for the naming of this episode by our patrons, and we'll see everybody next week. Deuces.